All right. All right, welcome back. So yesterday was the due date for the second assignment, where you were working on using HTML and CSS to come up with the implement a wireframe that I had proposed that allow you to navigate across several pages: the home page, profile page, admin page, forms, fields. And as I had mentioned earlier, this is a shell that it's a front end, right? It's a facade. There's the actual functionalities is not implemented yet. To actually implement it, we'll need to cover quite a bit more technology. Certainly, we'll first have to work on the JavaScript side, right? Which we're talking about all this week, last week, and all this week. And certainly, we'll have to talk about how to interact with the server, where to store data, right? Store it in a database, create the web services, right? So there's quite a lot to do. So the next assignment that will go out later today will focus on implementing the front end side of this, JavaScript, the logic part, right? How does the client interact with the user as a user interacts with the application, as a click and drag and fill out forms and whatnot. All those events need to be handled on the client side, right, before they go off and implement it on the server. So that'll be the focus of the next assignment. It will go out later today. Let's see. Also, I had mentioned that as you submit your assignments, you should tag them, right, to know which one, which version, which last commit that you did, do you want us to actually grade. But once you tag it, you're free to keep working on it, right? Any modifications that you make after the tag, they're up to you. You might be fixing a bug, you might be implementing other features. That's fine, because we can always go back to the tag and see how your source code looked like, right? Back when you tagged it, right? So it's great. So please feel free to keep working and exploring. We will grade you up until whatever the last time you tagged it last night, right? The last tag since yesterday midnight. Yes.
I uploaded my link, but I missed tagging it the last night. The last tag was like, say, 2 days back.
Okay. So you tagged it after midnight?
No, not yet actually. I missed it. So
okay.
Is that okay?
We'll be lenient for this first time around, because the tagging might be new to you, right? You might miss it, and that's fine, But if it's within a day or so, that's okay. So if you want to go back and do minor fixes, it's okay if you do it later today. That's fine, okay? But yes, please submit. Don't wait several days to be uploading and committing and pushing things to your repository. Please do very frequent commits. Okay, we can certainly see your progress. How often you've been doing, what kind of work have you been doing, or how busy have you been at your GitHub. Okay, we see long stretches where you haven't been doing anything. That might work against you. Okay, so please do, even if it's small things, right? Just do very frequent commits, right? Excuse me. Right. So last week we had started talking about JavaScript. We introduced jQuery as a mechanism that allows us to work on the client at a much higher level, right? Instead of working at the low level JavaScript, right? And I believe we looked at a couple of examples on how to use jQuery, and this is where we left off, I believe, on how to use Ajax to talk to server-side resources. In this particular example, we were showing you how to talk to a service that lets us search information about movies, right? And I wanted to go over this and how this is implemented, because it brings together several various techniques within jQuery, handling events, working with forms, updating the DOM dynamically, using templates, and obviously Ajax. Ajax to go off and interact with third-party APIs. So let's take a look at this. If you remember, right, you can type in names of movies. This goes off to the to a web service and retrieves JSON that includes plot information, authors, directors, some poster art, and we're using jQuery to dynamically render this page. Notice that the page never, I clicked on the button, right, but never the page never reloaded, right? It never reloaded. It's not like it was submitted to a server-side, any server-side technology that we wrote, right? It's underneath. We can see the network. Notice that if we look at the network traffic underneath, right? Let's go to the network and search something else. What other movie by James Cameron? Aliens. How's that? Notice that underneath, you see there's a URL going out to a server. See that? And you can see the traffic between our client, our JavaScript client, right, and the server. The page, notice that it did not refresh, right? It's not like it's cleared out the DOM, right? It's keeping the DOM. It's programmatically removing the old DOM, right, and regenerating the DOM. Notice the URL that went out, right? And you can see the headers that went out to the server, and this is the URL that went out, right? We can copy the URL. We can copy the URL. I'll copy it and paste it here in the input field here, right? And notice that it's going to go retrieve and then come back with data. Notice that we were kind of expecting JSON, right? And it almost looks like JSON. You see that? Right? It's almost JSON. The only difference here that it doesn't make it a JSON is that notice that it has that funny function called at the beginning. You see that? It says jQuery, some weird number, and then a parentheses. See that? And within the parentheses, we see that there is an array. Right? There is an array. And then at the end, notice that there's a closing array. There it is, right? And then the closing parentheses. What's all that about? Well, if I take that same URL and I paste it here, but we instead say that the format is JSON, notice that the JSON that was in this URL was just JSONP. See that? If I remove the P, we actually do get JSON, right? Just the data, just the raw data, no functions and whatnot. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. So what's happening here is that we have source code, right, JavaScript that is running on our own domain, right, which is right now it's localhost, right? It's our JavaScript was downloaded from a server running on localhost, right, listing on 3000, whatever that IP address, right? It's 127.0.0.1. Yes, it's at that domain. Yes, and it's trying to communicate to a URL which is not in our domain. Right, so JavaScript, our JavaScript, right, that which was downloaded from 127.0.0.1, it's trying to create a network connection, an HTTP connection to another domain that we don't control, right? It's outside of our domain, right? That's a no-no, right? That's a security breach, and the browser would stop us. It says, no, you can't do that, right? If the JavaScript would have been downloaded from what's that URL? My API films, then it's okay, right? JavaScript that is downloaded from a domain is free to communicate back to the domain that it was downloaded from, okay? But for security purposes, browsers are designed, right, to not allow JavaScript source code that are downloaded from one domain to talk to other domains, right? Most browsers support this. Older browsers don't impose this security, right, policy, right? And also, there's some plugins that you can download for Chrome and for other browsers that go get around this security issue, right? But it's not a viable solution, right? That so there is another way, which is it's an accepted workaround to this security issue, okay? That allows to trick the browser into thinking that, hey, we're not asking for data, we're not making a network connection to retrieve any data. What we're really asking is for a text document. We're just asking for a text document. We're not making any network connection, because browsers don't mind downloading things from a whole bunch of domains, right? Browsers are okay if we're downloading an image from one domain, an image from another domain, right? Maybe some text from one domain, another text from another domain, right? Browsers are okay with that, connecting to many different domains, right? Right. What the security breach is that that the browser is trying to limit you is as one JavaScript. I downloaded JavaScript, and that JavaScript is trying to make a network connection outside to a different domain, right? So to get around this, excuse me, right? We invented an accepted hack. Okay, and the hack is that we're going to trick the browser into thinking that we're not downloading data at all. We're downloading JavaScript, not JSON, JavaScript, right? And notice that the browser is okay with downloading JavaScript, right? The browser can download JavaScript from Google, then download JavaScript from Amazon, or download JavaScript from Bootstrap or jQuery. There's a whole bunch of CDNs, right, that we can go and download JavaScript libraries. Yes, but that's okay, right? So when we trick this, we indeed download JavaScript. Look at this. We're not notice this function at the beginning. See that function? That is right. This is proper JavaScript code, right? A function. It's a function call. It happens to have data in there, and then a closing of the parentheses, right? So by tricking the browser says, okay, fine, I'll download this. And what happens when we download this JavaScript from anywhere? It's a function call. You see that? It's going to execute immediately. That's what happens when we download JavaScript, right? It executes immediately. If it has global variables, the global variables are declared, right? If you have a function call, it calls that function. Yes. So this is what it's doing. It's looking for a function called jQuery, blah blah blah, whatever, right? And it wants to pass it this data. Right? Is this my function? Did I write this function? I didn't write this function. Right? Does the function even exist? Right? Well, what happens is that jQuery, right, because the jQuery knows how to use this hack, right, will dynamically create this function, receive the data, right, receive the data that is being passed to it, and then throw away the function. Right? It got around the security. You see that? Right? It got around the security. Right? It tricked the browser. Says, hey, I'm not downloading JSON. I'm downloading JavaScript. And you're okay with that, right? You see the trick? All right. So this accepted hack is referred to commonly as JSONP. Okay, not JSON, but JSONP. Right. All right. So that's the technology I wanted to mention. Notice that the browser is fine with downloading this, right? If you give it a URL, it's not fine with JavaScript doing this, right? We can type this URLs in there and it's fine, right? Okay, so let's try to recreate this so we can show you how this was built. Right, so let's see if we can do this, right? Play around with this. Okay. Let's see. So let's create here in lectures. I'll create here a file here, and I'll call it imdb.html. And in here, I'm going to copy a couple of CDNs to make this a little pretty. Let's look up a Bootstrap CDN. So we'll do a link, and this is the relationship is this is a style sheet, and the href is that, right? So this is going to download the CSS for Bootstrap. And we're going to download jQuery as well, right? So let's find a CDN for jQuery. Uh-oh. We don't want the CDN to be down. Actually, I might have it here, so I can just copy it from here, from our experiments. Yes. So we go to jQuery, and the latest one is Ajax, and we can copy here. There it is. Okay, so we downloaded both, and we can create here in the title, and we call it IMDb. And in here, we'll say this is a div class. I'll call this as a container. And in here, we'll say h1 search IMDb. Let's navigate to this lecture. It's under lectures, jQuery, IMDb. Okay, so it's local. So it's local host. It's listening at 3000. This is a lecture, lectures. It's on the jQuery, and it's called what? IMDb, imdb.html. There it is. So search IMDb, right? Okay. Let's create a very quick form under here. Now, before we do that, let's see what the URL might look like, right? The URL we're getting, that we're using, the service that we're using is called My API Films. So this is a third-party API provider that uses the IMDb API, right, to retrieve movie information, right? They give you examples on how to use it. I'm not going to go over the entire API, but they give you a form at the bottom that allows you to build those URLs, okay? So for instance, if you're searching for, let's see, Titanic, and you can ask for various formats, JSON, JSONP, right? So if it's JSON, and you say, well, how many movies do you want? We can say, well, I want 3 movies, right? And you can search. When you search for it, it generates for you what the URL you need to use, okay? And also provides you what the JSON might look like when it comes back. There it is. So that's the JSON that might come back. So we can copy this URL. Copy this URL, and if we paste it, it'll go fetch some a JSON that represents those 3 movies, the top 3 movies that match Titanic. And it's taking a while. Isn't the network is slow today, huh? Anyway, while that's working, we can create a URL here. We can say href and paste that URL, right? And we can say search for Titanic. If I refresh our page, oh, there, the JSON came back finally, right? And notice that it's an array, and it has 3 objects in there. There's 3 JSON objects in there, right? Each object has quite a few properties in there, right? Like countries, directors, filming locations, genres, and so on and so forth. Okay. Anyway, so here's my search IMDb. If I refresh, notice that there's my link, right? And that link, if I click on it, right, it's going to navigate and do the query and come back with the JSON response, right? But instead of a link, I want to do this programmatically, right? I don't want people clicking on links, and I want to be able to do this programmatically using Ajax. This is taking a while. Hello. Let me close that. Okay, eventually that will come back. Meanwhile, let's add a form down below. Let's add a form, and we'll say an input field, type, what, text. That's the default. And I also I'm going to give this an ID, and this will be a movie title. And I'm going to give it a class to make this look a little pretty. I'll make it, call it form control, right? That's one of Bootstrap's classes, right? All right, it came back finally. It came back, right? It went, notice that this is the same exact JSON that we had retrieved earlier, right? I'm going to go back to my page. If I refresh, I get the input field, right? I can put, maybe it's a placeholder here, placeholder, and you can give an example, Terminator, as a name of a movie. Down below, we can put a button and say button. We can give it an ID, and this is a search movie. And we'll put some class here. This is a BTN primary, and also I'll add button. What is it? Block, right? That's going to fill the button so that it takes up the entire screen. And then I'll say search. Search. If I refresh, there it is. So we have the input field, and down below the search button, right? And it's responsive, it's friendly to phones, right? So this is okay that it would render fine on a phone, right? Very good. All right, and down below, we'll create a table, some kind of table where we have the results, right? So, and we might have here some kind of table. Let's say the class is table, striped, and we might have some headers, t-head, where we might have a table row and some table headers that will say the title of the movie and the plot of the movie. Okay, and maybe we'll put here th the what is it? The poster, right? Poster. And down below, we'll have in the T body, we'll have maybe a table row, and we'll have some data, some dummy data, right? We'll have maybe here avatar. I love the blue people, blue folks. Dancing with wolves. In another planet. Anybody watch Dancing with Wolves? No? It's the same story as Avatar, but with American Indians. And TD some image. IMG. Source. All right, so it looks something like this. Avatar, I love blue, Dancing with Wolves, but in another planet. Okay, so I have a template of what this might look like eventually. Yes, maybe I'll put we'll put some here h2, and we'll say we'll have here results. Yes. All right, there we go. Now here we're going to have we'll have some code here. We'll load our particular script source, and we'll put it under imdb.javascript. Right, which doesn't exist yet. We'll create a brand new one. We'll say new JavaScript, and we'll call it imdb.javascript. There we go. So here, presumably we have jQuery up and running, but let's check to see if that it does indeed work. All right, we're going to follow our good practice of putting everything inside of a immediately invoked function so that we don't litter the namespace, and in here we'll create a function in it where we do our start. Right, that this is a kind of we do our code. We're going to put it in here, and we'll tell jQuery, hey jQuery, when you detect, when the browser notifies you that the document has loaded, please notify me by calling my init function. Right, so I know that the document is all loaded, and I can start interacting with it. Right. So for now, we'll just do an alert, and this will tell us that jQuery is indeed up and alive. Hello from jQuery. Okay, so let's reload this, and it says hello from jQuery. So yes, we know that jQuery is up and running, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a couple of event handlers in the IMDb, one of the things that we need to do is create an event handler for that search movie, right? If you click on that button, we need to handle that event, right? So let's do that. We'll say grab that ID, right? What is it? Search. What is it? Search movie. Right, that button, and if somebody clicks on it, call search movie. Right, some function that doesn't exist yet. Right. Let's implement it right here. Function search movie. Right, and so we'll alert just to see if it works. Search movie. All right, so let's click on it. Okay, search movie. So it works. So the event handling works. The other thing that we're going to need is get a hold of the input field where the movie title is. Right. So let's grab a hold of that. And so we'll say, and we're going to grab it just once, right? So that we can reuse it over and over without having to grab it again, right? And the input field is called movie title. So let's grab that movie title. Let's grab, and it's the ID is movie title. So now we have the movie title, right? Notice that the ID that I use in the HTML, it's the same name that I'm using as a function. They don't have to match, okay? But it makes it easier, right, to keep track of what matches with what, right? If you follow a consistent naming convention, right? You know what is talks to what. Same thing as a movie title, right? I'm using the same name that I use for the input field again, just to keep track on who's connected to it, but they don't have to match. So here. Now that I have the movie title, I can grab the title, right? I can say var title. I can grab it when I search for the movie. I can grab the title from movie title. I can say dot val, right? So that will grab the value of the input field. Now I have it, and I can now concatenate it here and say title, right? Just to check to see that indeed I am grabbing that title. So let's see if I type whatever and I click on search. There it is. So it says search title, a movie, and then whatever I type, garbage. Make sense? All right. Okay, so we got that. We have that. What we need to be able to do is use now that URL, right? The URL that was generated earlier. There's a URL. We can grab that. We can grab that URL, and what we want to do is we want to programmatically generate this URL, right? And go off to the server, and then the server will respond to us with JSON, right? So the way we do that, the way we do that is by using Ajax. So Ajax is a function that is declared inside of the jQuery namespace. Notice that it's $.ajax, right? So this is a top-level function, right, inside of the namespace jQuery. Remember. $sign is a alias for jQuery, right? We're very lazy, so $sign is faster. So in here, Ajax takes as argument an object, a JSON object, okay? And that object is what allows us to configure Ajax. We can tell it what URL to use, right? Where to go off and receive. We can tell it if we're sending data. We can pass data to that URL. We can tell it how to notify us, right? What format to use, JSON, JSONP, XML. What are we expecting? Just plain old text. What are you expecting? So we can configure those things. So for instance, we can say URL, and I believe I copied the URL. Did I? Okay, there's the URL, right? There's the URL, and notice that it was the title that I used. Alien earlier that came back with some information, and so there's the URL. Is that me? Oh. So another thing that we can configure is how do we want jQuery Ajax to notify us when the service comes back. Notice that all these GET requests or these HTTP requests that go off to the server, they might take up a little while, right? Notice that we typed the URL, and notice I took a couple of seconds, right? Maybe even 10 seconds. That would be JavaScript is a single thread, right? It's a single thread, and that means that if you call a function, that function blocks, right? By default, typically, right, when you call a function, the function, you're executing inside of the function. If the function is busy doing whatever you ask for it, it just blocks. And what would happen is that your browser would block, right? You just can't use your browser anymore, right? It's busy doing something. Well, Ajax is asynchronous, right? It's asynchronous meaning that it won't block, right? It will send off the request, right? And it will send it off asynchronously, meaning it's not going to wait for the request to come back, right? Instead, it tells the browser, hey, browser, go off and go get this for me, because the browser can get a whole bunch of documents at the same time, right? The browser is multi-threaded, right? The browser can start downloading, multiple documents at the same time, right? Download a whole bunch of images, a whole bunch of CSS style sheets, a whole bunch of, right? A document can ask for many resources, yes? And oftentimes it does this, it starts up many HTTP requests, retrieving all these requests simultaneously. So anyway, so JavaScript uses this feature of the browser to say, hey, fetch this for me, and when you're done, notify me, right? Call me back, right, when you're done, okay? This is because I don't want to block, because otherwise, whoever's using the UI, the page, they're not going to be able to interact with the page, right? But people don't want to wait, right? They want to still use the page. They want to be able to scroll and whatever, right? So anyway, to do this, we can configure a success callback function, right? Of how it's going to notify us when it comes back, when the request is done, right? We can provide a function. And in the function, oh wait, am I missing a comma somewhere? Okay, I added the comma. Notice this is a JSON object, right? Notice that it's property, URL is a property, and there's a value of the property. There's a property, and there's the value of the property, right? The property for this success is a function, right? It's a function call. Remember, JavaScript, you can use functions as if they were any other data type, right? As if they were a string or a date or a number or a function, right? And so I can provide here just a function, right? So anyway, the way the function works is that this function will be called, right, by jQuery when the response successfully comes back, right? When it successfully comes back. And what it's going to pass me, it's going to pass me the response that came back from the HTTP request, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to say console.log and then the response. We're just going to write out the response, okay? Now, this won't work, right? This won't work. Anybody guess why it won't work? Well, we mentioned earlier, right, that scripts are not allowed to make HTTP requests to other domains, right? We mentioned that, right? So if I reload this, if I reload I reload it, and I look at my console, right, and I type something, whatever. Hello. Wait, did I call it? Okay, all right, came back. Hello. All right, notice that it printed an error. Okay, it printed an error. It says HTTP request cannot load that URL. No access control allowed is present. Blah 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 blah. Therefore, allow access. Right. This is a typical error that you get when you try to do, that you're working in a domain and you're trying to access another domain. Right. You're trying to do cross-domain scripting. Right. That is no. It is not allowed. The browser stopped us. Okay. What it does is that it checks to see, right, where the script was downloaded from localhost, and is trying to connect to my API films. Oh, no, you can't do that, right? So instead, right, we're gonna go back to our form here. We're gonna say, hey, my API films, I don't want to use JSON. I actually want to use JSONP. Right? We're gonna say JSONP. Says, let me know what the URL would look like if it were using JSONP, because JSONP is an accepted hack that gets around this security issue. Okay. Now, this is not what we're going to. JSONP is for a hack, right? It's a very common hack that is required on older servers. Okay? Newer servers, right? Tomcat 7, Tomcat 8, right? You can configure these servers to say, hey, you know what? I don't care from what's happening is that the HTTP, the browser goes out to the server, right? And the browser asks the server, hey server, the request is coming from localhost, right? Is it okay with you? And the server is responding, no, I don't know localhost. I don't know who they are, right? It says, oh, okay, and it comes back to us saying, the browser comes back to us and says, sorry, the server is not allowing this, right? But newer servers, right? Certainly all the Google APIs, right? Yahoo APIs, Amazon APIs, they're newer, and their servers have been configured to allow access from either from anyone or from registered domains, right? If you're a partner, Amazon partner, or a YouTube partner, or you can register and say, hey, I'm running an application, either a phone application or your own website, and you're on your domain, right? It says, hey, my request is going to come from this domain. You register, they say, okay, fine. You're added to a list of acceptable domains, right? Now what happens is the browser, right, goes out and provides the domain, and the server says, okay, yes, that domain is in my list. I will accept that request, yes? And then come back and everything's fine. You can use just plain old JSON without using the JSONP hack, okay? But older servers, which is the majority, right, or haven't used this new feature yet, okay? You still have to use JSONP, right? But newer ones, if you're using any of the Google APIs, actually Google APIs are even broader. They accept requests from anyone, right? They don't care for what's coming. They say, they allow origin, */*, right, from anywhere, right? They accept requests from anywhere, so they're very lenient. But these guys are not. So let's do a search. Let's see what the URL looks like, and we're going to copy that URL. There it is. This is the URL. I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it here. Paste it. But now we have to configure a couple more things here in Ajax, right? We have to tell it, hey, don't use the default behavior, which is JSON. That's the default behavior. I'm actually using JSONP, right? Please use the hack, right? Because this is not going to work unless you use JSONP. We'll tell jQuery. We'll say, is it data type? I think it's data type. Let me look at my cheat sheet here. Yeah, data type, JSONP. Data type is JSONP, right? And now if I refresh our application, if I refresh it and type here Terminator, right, and do a search, okay, notice that data did come back now, right? And we were writing it to the console, right? We said console.log and the response. And the response is what? An array of three objects. You see that? If we open it up, notice that we have countries, directors, right? The genres, the successful attempt, and even-handed portrayal of the White Star. What? What's that? I don't know that movie. Oops. A 17-year-old aristocrat. What? I must be looking for the wrong Terminator. Oh, okay. No, notice that the name is hard coded, right? The name is hard coded. We don't want that, right? Instead, we have the title. There's the title, right? So let's remove the alert. Let's remove the alert and use the title as concatenation. Let's concatenate it. Concatenate. There it is, right? All right, let's try this again. And here, if I say avatar, wow, it's slow. There it is. So the three objects, and we have let's see, languages, title, avatar. Yep, there we go. What's this here? This is Tomorrow Never Dies. What? Oh yeah, I think this is like a James Bond movie. This one, 2005, 2008. Okay, so this one, in a war-torn world of elemental magic, a young boy. What? Oh, this is the Avatar comic book, right? The manga, the anime Avatar, which the movie was awful, unfortunately. Yeah, so it's coming back, right? So the query is coming back. So what's left for us to do now, we need to render that. We need to render it. So we can take a look at the object. Let's pick out a couple of things that we might care to retrieve from here. Certainly, we want the title, right? We want the title. What else do we want? We want the plot. There it is, right? Maybe the simple plot is enough. So we'll grab the simple plot. And I think there's a URL for the poster. There it is, the URL poster. And we have the URL, the IMDb. So let's grab those 4 things, okay? So going back to our code, what we can do is, we could do it in this function. A better way to do this is perhaps send it off to another function, right? So another function might be render movies. Render movies. And we'll pass the that's the name, right? Render movies. So function that doesn't exist yet, right? So let's write it. We'll say function render movies, right? And it's working with a response that is coming back, but we know that response is an array of movies, right? So let's do movies, and we'll still do console.log. We'll print out the movies, and we're gonna iterate. We know it's an array, so it's gonna say var m in movies. All right, so m is going to be an index, right? So it's just gonna say 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna grab the movie from the array, movies sub m. Right now that we have the actual movie, we can retrieve the title. It's going to be movie.title, right? Notice it's an object, right? I'm iterating, so I have each one of the objects. We have what? What else do we need? Movies, simple plot. So we'll say plot. It'll be movie.simple plot. What else do we want here? We want the poster. It's this one, URL poster. We'll say poster. Movie.URL poster, and I want the IMDb URL. So this is poster URL. So it's poster URL, and this will be movie. What is it? URL IMDb. There it is. There we go. Okay, we got that right. And what we need to do is generate. We need to generate the table. This table over here, right? We need to generate each one of those rows, right? So we could do it by hand, right? We could do it by hand, and then add it there. So let's try doing that. Let's try doing that. So there's the body. Let's name this table. We'll give it a name. ID results. Yes. So here we're going to grab the table. We'll need the table. So let's grab that table. So var table is where is hash. Nope, no. Wait, did we grab the wrong one? Called results, right? ID results. Everybody still with me? Did I lose anyone? Everybody still with me? I'm grabbing the table, right? The DOM for that table. But I really need what? I really need the body because I need to add to the body, right? I need to generate a table row, right? And as I iterate over each one of the movies, I need to generate these table rows, yes, and append them to the table body, right? Okay. So this first table row is kind of garbage, right? I don't really need it, right? So I should just blow it away. I could just blow it away, all right? So let's do that. So that's the table. I really need the T body, right? And the T body is where? Is in the table And then we can find under there the, I'm going to look for a child, right, that is a t-body, right? jQuery allows you to navigate the domain, right, by providing, you know, either IDs, classes, right, or any CSS rule. Basically, any CSS rule, right? This says, what does this do? I'm using the CSS rule, right? The element whose ID is results. Yes, right? Or I could have done this, right? I could have done either I could do it this way, or I could do it this way too. I could say starting at hash results space t-body. That's a CSS rule, right? You know, hash t results. That's the table. Yes. Space t-body means any child under the table, right, whose element is whose element name is t-body, right? This is a CSS rule. Okay, I could do it this way, or I could do it this other way. Both of them are fine. Anyway, so what do we need to do? We need to blow away the content of the t-body. So we can say grab the t-body and empty. Empty is a jQuery function, right, that you can apply to any DOM element, right, that you already have. I already have t-body, right? I have t-body. I said dot empty. What does that do? It just blows away whatever content you already have in the table, in the t-body. What content do we have there already? We have that tr, right? We don't need that tr, so we're going to just blow away that. We're going to create a table row for every time we iterate. We're going to create a table row, yes. So we're going to do what? We're going to say var table row. So we're going to create a brand new table row. There it is. Okay, got a table row. Very good. Now that we have a table row, we need to create a TD, right, for each one of these elements, right? A TD for the title, a TD for the plot, and a TD for the poster, right? So we're going to say var. We can say, say var. We can say title TD. I'm going to create a brand new TD. TD, there it is. And in there, I'm going to then append to that TD that I just created. I'm going to append the title. Yes. And once I have the title TD, I need to append the title TD to the TR, right? So we're going to say tr dot append, append the title TD. Once I have the tr, I need to append it to the table body, right? So t-body append the tr. Yes? Now that I've appended to something that actually exists in the DOM, notice that all these are not rendered, right? They're not rendering. Right? We're generating them in memory, in RAM, right? Not until we append it to a, not until we append it to something that is actually rendered. T-body is rendered, right? T-body has a rendering. You see that? Where is it? Right, this is the table body, right? That contains a single table row, right? Right. So it is. So this table body is actually in the DOM, right? None of these are in the DOM yet. Not until I append table row to the table body that it actually gets rendered, right? The jQuery notifies the browser, says, "Hey, browser, I've added new objects to the table, to the DOM, right? Re-render the page." Okay. All right, let's try it now. Let's try it. Let's search again. Let's refresh. I need to refresh because I updated my JavaScript. I need to re-download the JavaScript, right? So let's do avatar. We do a search. Let's see if it comes back. Is it taking that long? Network. All right. The request went out. The request went out. Okay, there it is. It came back. It did come back. We can look at the preview, the response that came back. Notice that it came back as JSONP. You see that weird function call? You see that? That tells us that this is not plain old JSON. It's wrapping the JSON around this, hacked function, right, as a communication protocol, right, to receive the JSON. Everybody okay? Right, and notice that we did receive the data. There it is, right? Notice that it rendered the titles of the James Bond movie, right, and the Last Airbender. That's the manga, and Avatar. And I guess that's the real movie. I don't know, maybe. Let's add the plot. Let's add the plot. So let's keep doing it. We have the table row. Let's add now the plot. We'll say var plot td, right? And that's, we're going to generate another TD. And we're going to append. Notice I'm using append, or I can give it a well-formed. I can add it here too. I could say plus plot plus TD if you prefer. The more HTML you actually use here and the more error prone. Right? Again, you're writing in JavaScript, which is generating HTML. Notice all this concatenation of strings, and this is very, very error prone. So this is not really how you would do it. Okay. Instead, you would use a template, which I'll show you in a minute. That's how the example uses. It uses a template instead. Right? It doesn't generate HTML from here, from JavaScript. It's very, very error prone. You try to avoid generating HTML from here. Okay. Anyway, so plot TD, let's append the plot TD. Let's try that again. Let's refresh. And let's look for aliens. And we can look at the request. The request went out. That's a request. It hasn't returned. There it is. It came back. Right, it came back. Aliens, the planet from Aliens 1979. Yeah, Dalho, I don't know that one. But it came back, right? So we're rendering title and plot. We're missing the poster, right? To generate the poster, it's a little more involved to generate the poster, right? Because the poster needs to be an IMG, right? So first we need to generate the image. Then we need to add the image to a TD, and then add the TD to the TR, right? So it's a little more involved. So let's generate the image tag. So the IMG tag. Let me create an IMG tag. There it is. And the way that the image tag works is that you need to provide a source of where the image is. And that source is here, poster URL, right? So now the source is an attribute, right, of the IMG tag, correct? Right, so to do that, we're going to say attr. Attr is a jQuery function that allows you to manipulate the tag you just created, right, or whatever element you have, right? Either something that is already in the DOM, right, or something that you've just created, like us. We're going to create an attribute. We're going to create a source attribute, and the value of that source attribute is going to be poster URL. Okay, now I have the image tag I just created dynamically. It's not yet in the DOM, right? We have to add it to a TD. So here is the poster TD. Let's say TD, there it is. And we're going to append, what are we going to append to it? The image, right? The image we just created, the IMG. And finally, we're going to append that TD to the table row. We're going to append the poster TD. There it is, right? We're going to refresh this. Let's look for Titanic. There it is, right? those are the images on the right-hand side, right? Make sense? The only other thing that we might want to add here is that title, I'd like for it to be a link, right? A link that goes out to the IMDb page, right? That'd be nice. So instead of appending just a title string, right? Instead, perhaps what we should do is maybe a title link, right? So we can create an anchor, right? Once I have an anchor, I like to change its attribute, its href attribute, right? And I want to assign it to point to the IMDb URL. See that, right? And inside of the hyperlink, inside of the hyperlink, I like to append, meaning inside, right, at the body of the hyperlink. Well, I can use append or I can use HTML, either one. Right, the inside the body, I would like to have put the title in there. See that? I want that to be the text, right? And then, so in the TD, I don't want just the title. I want the link. Right? I want the link inside the TD. See that? Right. So if I refresh this and look for what are the movies by James Cameron? Abyss. How do you spell Abyss? The Abyss. There we go. Right. Notice that now there are links. Right. I can say right click. I can right click on it, open on a new tab, and it goes back to the IMDb page. Right. You see that? Anyway, I had mentioned that it's a bad practice, right, to do it this way. Bad practice to do it this way, right? Because again, it's very, very error prone, right? Instead, what we could do, right, is, well, here we have the HTML already here, right? We have the HTML. Ideally, what we could do is grab this HTML, right, and use it as a template, right? Probably the what's his name? The designer already added, their very cool styling, right? They have all their classes. It makes it look very pretty, right? The layout is all done, right? And there's no way that I'm going to be able to generate that same layout, right, and that same styling from JavaScript, right? It's no way, right? That is not the correct tool. So so one more thing. We want the href here, right? I want this like that, and this be avatar. So that's the layout that we want, right? So what we're going to do here, we're going to make this ID. We're going to call it template, right? We're going to say this is the template I want to use, right? And the body is going to be kind of like the parent of the template, right? So I'm going to call this ID the parent or the container, right? Template container. This is a container of the template. So basically what I need to do is grab the template, right, from here, right, clone it, right, once for each object, and then append it back to the container of the template, blowing away the first template, right, because the first template is just bogus, right? But I first have to clone it first, right? I'm going to make sure I want to grab it first, right? So let's do that. Let's use that technique, right? So so this is render movies. I'm going to create another function. I'll call it function render movies with template, right? And it's going to receive movies. So instead of using our previous one, I'm going to call this other one the template, right? Okay. So this is going to be a better solution here, right? So we need to grab everybody that we need, right? We need to grab the container. We need to grab the template. Yes, we need to grab those. So let's go here, right? Let's grab all of these, right? So, well, anyway, the body is the container, right? So we have, notice that the body now has a proper name, right? So instead of grabbing it this way, I can grab it by ID, right? I can grab it by ID, right? I don't need the table actually. So, okay, so we have the container. So, and let's give it a proper name. Actually, if I do this, it's going to break the other function, right? Let me leave it as T body. Is it okay? I'll leave it as T body. Let me get the template. Let me get the template. So var template, and it's in hash template. Yes? Very good. We got the template. Okay. So what do we need to do? All right, let's do the console again. Console.log the movies like before. We need to empty the body. We always need to empty the container, right? Whatever, because in the next search, we like to blow away the old results, right, and re-render the new movies that we, right? So we're gonna say t body. We're gonna empty, same thing like before, right? Empty, empty, and we're gonna iterate, right? So this the loop. It looks very much similar. Blah 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 blah. So that's the same. That's the same. Okay. So that's the same as before. Okay, we got the title, we got the movie, we got the poster, the plot, we have everything, right? Actually, let me get the big plot. Hold the plot. Okay. All right, so instead, here we're going to use the template instead, right? So what we're going to do, we're gonna create an instance, a row. I'll call it tr. We're going to create a row from the template. Right? We're going to say template dot clone. Right? What this is going to do is we have the template. Notice that I just blew it away because now it's empty. Right? The template is gone because I emptied my body. Right? Right? That used to contain the template. It's gone. Right? But thank goodness I grabbed it earlier. Right? I grabbed it earlier. Actually, no, the template, I would need to clone it too. Otherwise, I'm going to remove something that I grabbed earlier. No, I'm cloning it. So I'm grabbing the template that's in the DOM. I'm cloning it. So now I have two templates. One is rendered in the DOM, and the other one lives in memory, right, in this variable template. Okay, that has exactly the same TR, all the TDs, right? The anchor, it has the image, right? It has all those things, right? It has the TR, right? It's got the TDs, it's got everything, right? So what we're going to do here is this. As I iterate, I'm going to create a brand new clone. Right? I'm going to leave the template untouched. Right? I'm going to leave the template untouched, right? Once I have the table row, I need to now configure my anchor. I need to configure the href of the anchor, right? I need to configure the plot. I need to configure all of those guys, right? Right? And so I need to be able to refer to each one of these. I need to be able to refer to this TD. I need to be able to refer to this to each one of these TDs. How do I refer to them? Well, from this template. From this template, how could I do that? Well, with CSS, I could, right? I could say hash template, right? And then space TD, but then there's 3 TDs. Which TD are you talking about, right? So with CSS, it's kind of weird to do it here. No, it's not trivial. So to make it easier on me, right? What we're going to do, right? We're going to give classes to these. Right, we're going to give classes and say this is the link, right? I'm going to give proper names to these things. This is going to be the plot, and this is going to be the poster. So this is going to be class poster. Now, from within JavaScript, I'm going to be able to, right, refer to each one of these using CSS rules. Okay, right. So going back here, I got tr, right? It's a clone of the template, meaning I have this in memory, not in the DOM, in memory. The DOM is empty. The T body is empty. So this no longer is in the DOM. So now I have it in memory. What do I need to do? I need to, now that I'm here at the TR, I need to find an element underneath, a child of mine, whose class is link. Right? Yeah, so let's do that. Now the TR, I can say TR find, and I can give it a CSS rule, right? What find does is that it searches the DOM starting on where you currently are in the DOM. Where are we? In the TR. Yes? So I'm going to search underneath me, my children, anybody who has a class called, what was it? Link. Yes? Now that I have the link, what do I need to do with the link? I need to do two things, right? I need to set its href attribute, and I need to set its body, right, to be the title, correct? So let's do that. I'll say dot attribute. I need to change the href to be the IMDb URL. There it is. And I need to set the body, the HTML, to be the actual title. Everybody okay? Right. All right. I modified the TR. I modified the TR. What else do I need to do? Okay. So we modified this first H, this first A here, this anchor here. Now we need to modify this plot over here, right? So we need to retrieve the plot, right, and set its HTML to be the actual plot. Yes? So let's do that. We'll say tr find dot plot and set its HTML to be the plot here. Okay. And finally, let's see, we need to get a hold of this image whose class is poster. It says tr find somebody whose class is poster and set its source attribute to be the poster URL. Okay. Notice that this TR is still just in memory. This TR is still just in memory. We haven't added it to the DOM. Okay. We need to add it to the DOM. So to add it to the DOM, we say tbody, which is our container. We're going to append tr. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. All right. Let's see if this works or blows up. Let's see if it blows up. So let's go back here. Let's refresh. Always looking at the console here to see if it complains. Okay. Let's try it out. We'll see avatar search. All right. So it went out. That's the query that went out. Okay. Looks like it worked. Looks like it works. See that? If we search again, there's three of them. 1, 2, 3. We can say star track will work. Star track. Oh, that might not work. Query. Okay, yeah, it did work. Star Trek, right? So we have movies. Notice that again, it blew away the old content, right? And it refreshed. Notice that we can step through the code, which is also very important when you are debugging. Here's the source code, right? We can say we can look at render movies. Right? We can put breakpoints, right? And we can say we can search Star Wars. Search. Okay, there it is. So notice that it went into the source code, and we can step through it. We can step through it, and we can hover over movies. Right, we can see that it's an array of 3 objects. Right, we can look at the content. Right, we can step through line by line. Right, we can also put some watch. We can look at some variables. Right, step through it. Notice that it has the local variables. Notice it has M as movie, right? You can see the current movie. Right? So you can see all the local variables, or you can put your own watch expressions. You know, pretty cool, right? That you can step through and debug this, right? If you see something not going right, you can remove breakpoints and just keep going. Oops, full. There it is. Okay, everybody good? All right, this is the technique that the example I showed you last week uses a template. Okay, now this idea of using a template you can imagine, right, that if somehow we came up with a really cool naming convention, right, where somehow these classes, if somehow these classes that we're using here are the same attribute names that are coming from an object, right? Imagine if we could automate this so that so that there would be a naming convention that the names of these classes somehow match to the attribute names of objects that come in, right? And we could generate a mechanism that would parse the template. And it doesn't matter if it's TRs or ULs or whatever. I don't care what the actual DOM is. I just care about those classes, those names, right? If I can match those names against the objects, I can say, oh, I'll grab from here, I'll grab the title from here, I'll put it in a title, right? If I see plot, I'll fill in the plot. If I see, I could generate some generic, I can create a generic algorithm, right, that can match objects with templates, right? And that's exactly what Angular does, right? Well, we'll see later on that Angular, right, what it does is that it provides a mechanism that allows you to match templates, right, match them with objects that are in JavaScript, JSON objects with templates in HTML, right? Right now we did it ad hoc, right? We did it by hand, but you can imagine that a framework, right, could generalize this technique, right, to make the mapping automatic, right? So just have this in mind, the exercise we did today, and to try to imagine what's happening behind the scenes in Angular that we'll introduce maybe today. Okay, everybody good? Yes.
Can you show the JavaScript ones?
Yep.
So after you do the t-body.empty, you said the DOM elements will be removed, right? The child DOM elements.
Where? I'm sorry.
The t-body.empty.
T-body.empty. Yes.
So how does it get over to the template?
We did it before. The very first thing that we did is we cloned it, right? I mean, we could have done it in the method. We could have done that. The thing is that it's usually better to grab everything that you're going to need from the DOM once, right, and cache it, right? Cache it and keep it along, right? So you're not doing repeated trips back to the DOM. That's kind of expensive, to run those CSS rules and retrieve all the elements. That's kind of expensive. So you try to minimize the times that you go back and forth to the DOM. Okay. All right. Any questions? So this is the example that's already there. We just did it from scratch by hand, right? So it's the code is already there, and we had introduced it late last week. Let me go back to the experiments that we were playing around.
Professor?
Yes.
Can you go back to the JavaScript?
The JavaScript?
And inside the function?
The render?
Yeah.
Yep.
So why are we cloning the rows here? The template row clone?
Right. So the template, I want to leave it clean, right, untouched, right, because I don't want to litter it with actual data, right, real data, right. I don't want to mock it up, right? So that it is the original template that the designer came up with, right? I cloned it and I have it in memory, and then it gets blown away from the DOM when I do empty, right? I only have it in memory. I have this DOM object that represents a TR, a table row, only in memory, right? And then what I do is I copy it over and over and over, and I add the copies to the body. I leave the template untouched so I can keep cloning it clean, right? So it's nothing. It's like a template I might use to do a select to a database, right? And then I append values for the fields, right? I might leave the string, the original string, untouched, right? And then I fill in the blanks, right, to use it to query a database, right? But those values might litter my original query. So I always leave the original query, with empty fields, just blanks for me to put in there, right? So right now, yeah, the template is kind of my blank slate.
So it basically knows that your template has 3 TDs inside.
Yes, right, because we grabbed it originally, right? right? We grabbed it here, right? So here it went off to the HTML and says, oh, it's this one. Right, so it copies this entire DOM object in memory. Okay, it doesn't do anything with it, just clones it and now has it in memory, right? And it's accessible through this variable called template. Yes.
How does the IMDb, this JavaScript know that it has to grab the template from that particular HTML file?
Yes, what happens here is you have IMDb, right? And IMDb is loading imdb.javascript, right? It's as if you had it locally copied in this file, right? And once it gets loaded, once jQuery gets notified that the DOM has loaded, it says, I can start interacting with the DOM, right? And the first thing that it does is that it grabs a couple of things from the DOM, right? It grabs the movie title, the container, the template. It grabs all those things from this HTML document. Yeah. Yes.
So I have two questions. First one is that since we have the template in our DOM, the HTML, right?
Yeah.
And we load it as a template and we change all those attributes inside of it.
Yes.
So where's the original template goes? It doesn't show on the HTML later on.
Right. Well, it does, right? When I refresh, notice that it's there. The template is there.
Yeah, it's changed.
Right? No, this is the original.
Yeah.
This is the original template. Right, this is the original template that is there, untouched, which we're going to blow away on our first search. Right, on the first search, we have the container, which is the T body, right, and we say .empty. So whatever was already there gets blown away, right? So the thing that was there the first time was the original template, right? So this original template, which you bring up a good point, right? Does it even make sense, right, to show the template even the first time? It makes no sense to even have it here, right? Right. So what we might do is grab the template and then remove it. Grab the template, clone it. Well, actually, no, sorry. You could just empty the T body here. I could say T body, right, and empty it right after we grab it. Notice that it has to be after we grab the template. Otherwise, it will be empty, and then we're not grabbing anything, right? Right. So I'm emptying it. Notice that it's empty now, right? So I refresh, right, and it's nothing. There's nothing there. But I have the template in memory, though, right? Yeah. Another thing that you might want to do is if it's a big, huge template, you might see like a flash where the template appears for a split second, and then I remove it, and then there's a little flash. And so what you might want to do is also you could style it so that it's display none, meaning don't render it. It's in the DOM, it's just not being displayed, right? But if you do that, you need to remember that when you clone it, it will still be display none, right? So you can either clone it, and once you clone it, you change its displays into block, right? Display block. So that next time you clone it, it's always display block, display block, display block. Right? Yes. I'm sorry, you had two questions. What's the second one?
Yeah. So if we just don't have the template clone on the init function, does that mean we only have we show 3 results, right? That means the 3 results won't be the same because we all change the same thing on the same memory space.
Right. So what the JavaScript is doing is that it has a template. The template, we're not changing the template. The template always stays the same, right? Notice that what we do is we clone the template. We clone the template, and now we have a copy of the original template, right, with the title, avatar, and the plot. You know, I love the blue guys, right? And it's whatever. Dancing with Wolves. That's the original template, right? Has the dummy text in there. I clone it, and the template is untouched. I'm not touching the template now. I'm touching the TR, right? TR now is a clone of the original template, and now I'm making all the modifications to the new TR, right? Which is, at first, they're identical to each other. Neither one of them is in the DOM, right? Neither one of them is in the DOM, right? Because the template was removed by T-body empty, right? Now the table row gets appended once per each movie, Yes? One for each movie. Next time around, when I do a new search, remember, the first thing that I do is remove any content in the T-body, which were all the old TRs, right, from the previous search, right? We empty any previous searches. They're gone. They're removed from the DOM, right? And I'm going to render the new results. Right? Does that make sense?
Okay, so what if we just don't have the template flow on the init function?
What if we don't? What do you mean? Right over here? Here?
Yeah, when we don't call this clone.
If we don't call the clone?
Yeah.
We would be. So what would happen is that you're grabbing something from the DOM, right? That then afterwards it's no longer going to be there, right? Because it's going to be removed by the empty, right? The body empty. Right? So you're referring to something that is no longer there.
It's only show the first result.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yes.
My question was, we always need to have a dummy or some placeholder inside the HTML and that we can refer to.
Yes. So this is something that a designer, right? They might draw up the HTML document with dummy text, right? Dummy, lorem ipsum and whatnot, with a whole bunch of layout and dummy images, right? So that they can work out and make sure that it looks professional, and then they hand it off to you, the developer, and says, okay, well, now make it real, right? Make it real with real data, right? And says, oh, okay, well, here's my template. I know what it needs to look like, and then I'm going to use that template. I'm not going to try to compete with a designer. Obviously, they're making it much prettier than I ever could, and use the original template, right? But just going to copy and paste it as many times, like a stamp, right? I'm going to take their stamp, right? I'm going to copy and paste with real data, right? Okay, this is a cool technique, but we're not going to actually use this technique once we go into Angular. There won't be a need to do this, right? This is very low level, right? Manipulation of the DOM, very low level. Let me grab a DOM, let me grab it here, right, and generate them dynamically. It is a great skill to have, right? And there's tons and tons of jobs out there that you require jQuery. I just want to move on and go a little higher, right? A little higher level of abstraction. Okay, so I want you to imagine, where could you take this technique of using templates and objects? Could you imagine having an array and somehow say, well, here's a template. I want you to use this template and somehow repeat this template for every one of those. And then as you're iterating over those objects, right, map the attributes of the properties of those objects, the values of the properties of those objects, map them to classes or IDs in the DOM, right? And they automatically get filled in and cloned and added. Imagine what this might look like. But we'll take a look at that when we go into Angular later today. Might not have time. Okay, so any other questions? All right, so let's look at some of the other examples that we were working on. jQuery. So jQuery, as I mentioned earlier, it's a library that extends the capabilities of jQuery UI. Sorry, jQuery UI is a library that extends the power of jQuery by providing a library of widgets, right? That implement many types of user interface components, right? Such as date pickers and accordions, right? And tabs and pills that are very, very useful for creating user interfaces, right? It also provides several behaviors out of the box that allow you to create these very, very dynamic kinds of applications, like very, very dynamic types of interaction. So one of the cool ones is that you can make anything draggable on the screen, right? So you can click and start dragging everything around, right? Just by grabbing something from the DOM, right, and just applying one of those functions. We saw some of these functions, right? We saw .html, .attr, .append, whatever, right? All these functions, right? So it extends the behavior and functionality of plain old HTML, right? Obviously written in terms of the underlying JavaScript. Underneath of this is all JavaScript, right? Something that you would like to write, but instead this is, these are libraries that, open source libraries that have been thoroughly tested, thoroughly, proven to work right. So anyway, so just like you can call .html, .append, you can call .draggable. You call something, if you grab something from the DOM and you just say .draggable, boom, it's draggable. You can start interacting and start dragging things around, right? And you can configure all sorts of things. You can configure a grid so that it snaps to the grid. You can configure that things are draggable and only in a particular axis, right? Only up and down or left and right. You can configure so that they snap to other elements. I mean, pretty sophisticated behaviors, right? All configurable, right? The default, right? Draggable takes no arguments, and the behavior is the default behavior is you can just grab it and drag it anywhere, and just put it anywhere you want, right? But then, like many jQuery, many of these functions, you can configure the behavior by providing an object, a JSON object. You can tell it the axes, X, Y, which axis you want to drag, right? Whether you want to snap to a grid. How big do you want the grid? 10 by 10, 20 by 20. How big do you want the grid? Lots and lots of configuration. I encourage you to take a look. Here's the source code for this. You see the source code. Excuse me. See the source code. What is the source code? Oh, this one has actually two. It has a P, meaning grab, right? So that's the jQuery. It says grab all elements whose name is P, right? All paragraphs. And then call on them .draggable. See that? .draggable. That means that now all paragraphs are draggable. Right? You can be more specific. You can say P paragraphs, only paragraphs who have a particular class, you could say, right? P draggable, maybe, right? Only paragraphs who have a class draggable are draggable, right? So you can do that, so be more specific. Notice that we're adding other things, where we're adding resizable to this. That's another jQuery UI behavior that you can add to DOM elements, meaning you can add the ability that things can be resized, right? You can resize left and right, up and down, from the corner, right? So you kind of can create some kind of like a windowing system, right? Where you can drag things around, right? You can resize them, position them where you want, snap them to a grid. A lot of content management systems, right, can use these techniques, right, to kind of give you kind of like a WYSIWYG tool for building HTML pages, right? And some of you have approached me as if that would be like a project, right? That'd be really, really cool. I love those projects, right? I worked on one of these content management systems that you can build your application by just dragging and dropping content onto the page. Very, very cool. Here's another one, very, very cool behavior. Right? You can make things sortable, meaning something that we like to be able to do with content is being able to reshuffle, right, or move things around that are they're all part of a collection, right? So you can move the third element and move it down to the 7th place, right? Or move the last element, bring it to the first, right? So to do that, we call .sortable, right? .sortable. The common thing is to sort something that already is part of a collection, right? The easiest one is ULs or OLs, right? Things that have a list of things, right? That have children, have lots of children, or are meant to have children. But it's not only limited to ULs, right? You can have any parent that might have any children, any number of children, can be the container of many draggable or sortable children. So if you have a div, and then underneath you have many subdivs, right? You can you can grab the top div and then say that all my children divs are sortable, and you can drag around divs inside the parent. Very cool. Notice that here's using what I mentioned earlier is using a JSON object as an argument. Right, all of these can take arguments. Right, draggable, sortable, resizable. They can all take JSON objects as arguments to configure their behavior. Right. Here we're saying, hey, sortable. Right, sortable allows you to grab any element and just move it around and then let it go in the position that you want it. Right. Which might be kind of weird, right? If you're either sorting vertically or horizontally, right? If you're sorting vertically, typically you want move the elements and not just drag it around, and you want it to stay within a particular axis, right? Or if you're sorting things horizontally, you want to be able to grab, right, and then everything shuffles, making space for the new element, right, where to go. You want that to horizontally be only in the x-axis, right? So you can configure here. Here I'm saying that the only axis that I want is the y-axis. Okay, so let's see the behavior here. Notice that if I refresh, notice that here I can reshuffle these. Right? I can reshuffle and just drop it into place. Right, the last one I can bring it top, and notice that it's only moving in the y-axis. Right, and that's only because I added that configuration that I want the axis only to be y. Otherwise, I could drag it anywhere. Right. Notice that resizable adds this little resizable icon on the right-hand side, bottom right. Right. Notice that it also adds when you come to the edges, it adds this icon, right? That changes the cursor. Okay. And indeed, you can resize it. You can move it around, right? You can push it down and it moves, and you can also just move it around, right? Which is pretty cool. So again, what could you do with this? I mean, your imagination is the limit, right? What can you possibly build with this, right? A date picker is one of many widgets, right? If you click on it, you have a widget. Although this has become less useful now that most browsers support a date picker, a default date picker. But if you say type equal date, most browsers will have a date picker, but that date picker is not the same across all browsers. They don't look all the same. They don't behave all the same. So oftentimes you need to fall back on a standard implementation like jQuery's date picker, right? So that it looks the same and behaves the same across all browsers, right? Unfortunately, the HTML5 specification is not equally implemented across all browsers, not yet anyway, right? So you still have to fall back into one of these plugins. It allows you to navigate and choose the month, the year. You can extend it to be able to also choose the time, right? And it's configurable to work in most locations. It's locale aware, right? So render one way in Europe, one way in East Asia, one way here. So it depends. It's military. You can configure it to behave many different ways. Accordion is another plugin that allows you to be able to display tons of data in a smaller area, right? So that you can navigate. Right, this is the default look and feel of jQuery UI, but you can customize the look and feel completely, right? If you don't want rounded corners, if you don't want gradients, if you don't want the color of the font, all that is configurable, and it generates a CSS for you. Oh, one thing, for the resizable to work, you have to also include the theme CSS, the CSS that comes along with jQuery UI, right? All the other ones work just fine without the CSS, right? So draggable works, sortable works, but resizable, you have to, in addition, you have to load the CSS. And I think, do I have it here? Yeah, so let me just show you real quick. In the head, yeah, there it is, jQuery UI.css. If you do not load that CSS, resizable won't work. Actually, none of the other plugins will work because they depend on the CSS to render things in the correct font and the correct colors and whatnot. Okay, so jQuery UI is loaded after, right, the jQuery, right? So here we have being loaded, right, and right after that, notice that we have the jQuery UI library loaded right after that. Okay, it expects jQuery to be already loaded. Sortable, okay, we did that already. Resizable, dialogues, right? So dialogues are fully supported in jQuery, right? You can have modal dialogues, you have floats, you can have non-modal dialogues, right? You can have dialogues inside. You can put all sorts of forms in there that you can interact and fill out and then submit. And you can have all sorts of event handlers that will tell you when a form has been submitted, right? So you can retrieve the data from the DOM, right? Retrieve it so you can grab the data and then send it to the database or whatever. Autocomplete is another one, right? That allows you to provide a set of possible values, and then as you type, right, it searches the content of that and it displays it. This one is hard-coded to live only on the client, but it can be configured to go off to the server. Right, it can be configured to, every time you type something, right, it sends that query to the server. The server does a query, right, goes a database query or whatever, and then it comes back with a subset result that you can then display here. Right, that's the more common use, right? That it's a server-side autocomplete. This one is using just hard-coded in the front end. All right, I think I have 2 minutes to introduce Angular. Right, so Angular. So AngularJS is one of many fairly new JavaScript libraries, or which, well, more than a library, perhaps many refer to as it's a framework, right? That unlike jQuery, right? jQuery doesn't impose on you a lot of things, right? It says, well, here's your HTML. You're free to do whatever you want with HTML. I won't impose anything on the HTML. I just, here from jQuery, I can just, interact with the HTML. I can grab things from the HTML. I can add things to HTML, right? To the DOM. I can manipulate that DOM. Whatever it is, I can manipulate it. I can work with whatever DOM you give me. Yes? Now, Angular, it's a little more intrusive. Actually, it's a lot more intrusive, right? It forces you to think in a particular manner, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's one of several libraries or frameworks that are starting to use a lot of the ideas that we have been using for quite a while in the back end, right? That we have been using on server-side programming, right? So, like dependency injection and singletons and model view controllers, right? These are design patterns that have existed for quite a while, right? In server-side web development, right? Or server-side in general, right? Have been around for us with us for a while. So these newer frameworks are taking a lot of these same ideas that have proved to be very useful, right? And they're taking those ideas and making them available on client-side developments, right? So these design patterns, such as model view controller, right, is one of the main ideas around which Angular is built on, right? So typically in a web application, you think of the HTML as being the view. Thinking of maybe servlets or some kind of web service as being your controller, receiving requests from the client, and then you have some data model that represents some that maps to some schema to a database, right? That's the overall architecture you think about when you have MVC. Now Angular takes this and brings it all to the front end, right? So it becomes a little weird when you think about MVC, but this is MVC on the client. The client now has a little mini MVC, right? Where the HTML is the view, right? The control is JavaScript controllers, right, that are running on the client, and it has its own data model, right? All on the client, running on the browser. There's no server involved, right? No database involved, right? Right? Obviously, we as we progress, we'll talk about how to map the data model that you have on the client, right? That you have on the browser, how to map that to data models on the server side, right? These objects, how do you map them? How do you map the objects that live on the client, the objects that live on the server? But we're gonna, for the next week or two, we're gonna be focusing on applications entirely built on the client, on the browser, and then kind of use the server almost like a storage facility, right? I have my data on the client, and if I need to store, or I'll put it, or I need to fetch data or store data, or I need to persist, right? I'll go back to the server, right? If I need server-side resources, I'll go for the server. It'll be just an additional resource to this client-side application, right? So it's a much higher level way of thinking, and again, it imposes quite a bit, right? Anyway, we'll continue discussing this on Thursday. All right, thank you.